Back with us on the conversation, my guest is Britain's High Commissioner to Jamaica, Asif Ahmad. High Commissioner, the issue of Britain's moral leadership, I have to come to that because it has relevance for where Britain, the groupings it is a part of now, and its relationships with its partners, whether it's bilateral direct partners or groups that it is partnering with. There was a time when Britain was, if not, well, of course, on the pedestal of world politics, world affairs, was a leader, still is a leader, still a part of that elite group. But that reputation has taken a lot of damage. Britain, the British Parliament, has been unable, I'm suggesting to you, to exert moral authority at home in these Brexit negotiations. And so, internationally, Britain has been weakened by something that, as a casual observer, I didn't think you had to get involved in to start with. And I remember very well the days of David Cameron and what he promised to win an election, and then what happened when the election was won and he had to deliver on the promise, and how he set the ground and then left. Poor Theresa May. I feel sorry for the woman. But within all of that, Britain is not what she was, High Commissioner. How do you plead?
Well, you know, I think you wouldn't expect Britain or any country to stand still, whether you want 10-year segments or 50-year segments or whatever. And we've talked about our deep history and where we've moved on. If anything, and I've been following, you know, politics from when I was a student right up till now, this is politics and high drama at its most sophisticated. Here you see the different arms of government and the legislature and the public and the media actually functioning as a mature democracy. I'm not ashamed of the fact that what you're actually seeing is this sort of discord and disagreement and resolution. Because what it says is that when you hit something that is so important for the UK, the government can't get its way unilaterally. You have to take into account the constituencies and the nations of the UK, Europe as an emerging trading bloc which we helped to build. All the new accession states came in because it was Britain that wanted them in to break this club that was really dominated by two countries. Yeah. So we are very much the architect of the strong Europe. Our economy is still one of the world's leading economies. We are in the permanent members of the Security Council. Yes. If you look at our institutions and law and
your OECD pillars, royalty,
you know, all of these things are are fundamental sort of foundations. Just because we've got a leaky roof doesn't actually mean that the whole edifice.
But I'm suggesting to you that the roof is more than leaky, because you say the discordant voices now and look, let's be fair, the bellicose narrative that comes out of the Parliament, you say that that's a sign of a healthy democracy. Perhaps it is, but I'm suggesting to you, all of this is being played out in front of a public who is tired of this bickering every day. Theresa May can't get her way. The Tory party is split in about 5. Labour Party is, as far as I'm concerned, leaderless right now. There's no one with the authority to pull the Labour Party in one direction. Nigel Farage is suddenly back on the scene because both the Tories and the Labour Party are doing damage, internecine warfare, then warring across the aisle. The SNP is a non-event. I'm just saying that with all the bickering, voting for this, rejecting, voting for that, rejecting. We don't want May's deal, what's the counter deal? You can't agree on anything, and the public is saying, what the devil is going on? We need someone at Westminster who can make a decision. So a man like Nigel Farage, who many people have an unfair view of, is now suddenly re-emerging as a likely savior of Britain. I can't believe what I'm seeing.
No, what you're seeing is something that keeps you and I gainfully employed and actually excited. You know, you name me any kind of controversial referendum that might have happened in Switzerland, you know, whether yodeling too loudly was an issue or not. Nobody talks about that sort of thing. This is theatre. This is real democracy. This is about older people, younger people, people in the provinces, people in the cities, really defining the future of their country. And they're not going to give anybody a free pass. They're not going to go tribal and say, I'm with Labour, therefore that's what you can. No, you have to earn the vote. And the fact that the reality of all of this is that, you know, you can argue whether the referendum should have been called or not, but it happened, and the people voted in a certain way. But the margin was slim. It was not a slam dunk for one on the other. And the reality in Parliament is that there is no working majority for any of the options. To remain, to leave on a hard Brexit terms, or something in the middle. There's no, even if the two parties agree on some sort of accord, there's no real guarantee that this would succeed. And people are talking about a second referendum, people are talking about a general election.
All those have been voted down.
whatever will happen will be resolved, but it will be resolved through the institutions. And alongside that is what I represent, which is the civil service. And it's interesting, you know, when we're recruited into the civil service, and I've been a recruiter also myself.
Yes. One
of the things we do is not dissimilar to this, is we ask you to, as a candidate, to say, talk for 10 minutes about something you feel absolutely passionately about. Yes. And then we say, okay, stop, now argue the opposite.
Yes.
And this is not theory. This is exactly what has happened to civil servants. We were building the European architecture for the last 40-odd years. Suddenly somebody says, now argue the opposite. We've made preparations for every kind of scenario there is. Mm-hmm. And some of it has been contingency, some of it is very real. There's one space, which is where this whole Brexit issue has now sort of hit the really what I call the hard yards, which is how do you resolve the hard border between Northern Ireland and Ireland.
That has been the perennial problem.
That really is it. And I don't think even the best brains of the civil service have come up with something that you can point to and say, if you do this, it's fixed. Because you're actually talking about two very opposing wishes that need to be fulfilled.
But you seem to suggest, High Commissioner, that coming out of this, I hope my French is good, contretemps, yes, involving the various parties sitting in the House of Commons, and the civil servants outside, and the advisors, the whole army of consultants and everything, that out of this will come a stronger democracy. That may eventually be so. I'm not sure in the immediate term that is indeed so, because again, I'm saying to you, despite the fact that the discordant voices have been given a platform and each person, to a man or a woman, has been heard, I watch and I'm aghast at what I'm seeing. The problem is a solution is no nearer in sight. Theresa May said, what, March 29 as the original departure date? And we've had numerous sittings at the House of Commons, numerous instances of deal making. And all of this happens, and we are nowhere nearer to saying Britain resolving the issue one way or the other. Today, High Commissioner, we have no way of knowing what will happen. That can't be good for the democracy.
Now, uncertainty is not good for anybody, but I think I would challenge you that it is actually better to have this sort of vibrant democracy than to have a one-party state where everybody just sits there nodding their heads, and you know you're measured as to whether
comes a point where you may need some dictatorship to, High Commissioner.
Oh no, never. We've gone down that path in other parts of Europe, and the experiment has not come out too well. I just think that this issue is so important that the answer about how long, well, as long as it takes to get it right, and the right answer could be one of many things. It's not even my job to say what is the preferred outcome. Whatever is resolved will ultimately have been through scrutiny at the highest level and intensity. And yes, I think we've been distracted. I think there are many domestic things that we want to get right. There are issues around the world which if we're not careful, will start to run past us when we're so preoccupied with what we're doing. Yes, I think everybody would like to get it resolved, but we cannot end up in a situation where the resolution is so weak that at the first challenge and the next iteration it starts to collapse, and we're right back to square one.
I agree with that, but one of the consequences of what we've seen with the bickering and the back and forth and the backstabbing, the authority of the Prime Minister's office has been severely weakened, because the issue of the leak of the Huawei decision, which is high-level national security, I don't want you to have to impress that on you, and what Britain was intending to do with allowing Huawei to build the IT infrastructure to roll out 5G. That leak, I don't think under normal circumstances that leak would have happened. Leaks happen all the time. Let's not kid ourselves. And of course, I'm in the business of engineering leaks. But a leak of such an important national security consideration would not have come in a government where a Prime Minister was known to have authority, where the government was known to be stable. And I'm suggesting to you that the Brexit fracas, which has been long running and has no end in sight, created the conditions for that to happen, whether or not the man fingered as the leaker was guilty or not.
Yeah, I think it would be wrong to just see this through the current situation. We've had Tony Blair had his own issues, and in the end had to give way to Gordon Brown, who then couldn't win an election. You can go to famous prime ministers, Chamberlain, with being accused of appeasement. You have Churchill, who supreme war leader, but could not keep the politics alive. Politics has always been about factions. This has been true whether you have a landslide victory with a solid majority, that's when you get fighting within your party. If it's a narrow one, then you have cross-party. And then right now, because it's a sort of a coalition of sorts, with the DUP keeping the party alive. This, to be honest with you, appears strange to people watching it from a distance. For us, it's actually quite normal. It's just that the volume is turned up because the issue is so important. But this is the reality of parliamentary democracy and the way in which prime ministers come and go. Margaret Thatcher never lost an election, but her ending was...
She was worn down eventually by her own. But let me ask you this. It's funny you say that as a man who is not a spectator you're not in the peanut gallery. You are ringside. We are way up in the cheap seats looking on from a distance. Have you, in your lifetime, High Commissioner, ever seen a coalition of chaos, as it has been called in the House of Commons, this Tory arrangement with the DUP and everybody else? Have you ever seen the factions that you speak of so openly at war with themselves and among themselves as we're witnessing now?
To be honest with you, this is really not unique. And if you watch even the sort of the faction films of Queen Victoria's time or The Crown and all the things that people are watching avidly on their various subscriptions and the like, and the Corn Laws, you can go back wherever you want. When you have something that there's a clear division of opinion or policy or ideology, this is what you see in our types of politics. I honestly believe, this is not me just saying this as a representative of the UK, this is politics and government and the whole sort of process of decision making in a way fascinating, and it's what is nice about it or different about it is it's all out in the open. There's no hiding place.
It's funny again you say that as we take the break. I'm listening to people like Rob Watson, the BBC's veteran correspondent on parliamentary affairs, who says not only is the crisis itself, which is different from the issues around the crisis, not only is the crisis unprecedented, but the issues around the crisis are themselves unprecedented, and Britain is in unprecedented times. You seem to be playing it cool, like to say, well, nothing to see here. That's not the impression I'm getting from other sources.
Because history is a long story.
On that point, we take the break. We're halfway through this conversation with the British High Commissioner to Jamaica, Asif Ahmad. Much more on the other side.